Hi. Greetings from Wisdom Lord Raphael. Before we start, please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell icon and don't miss any content. This is the light novel of that time I got reincarnated as a slime. If you haven't watched previous video, I will leave the link on the description box, or you can click here. Let's start. This is Tensura Light Novel Volume 17. Tensura Light Novel. Volume 17. Fragments Across Spacetime. Chapter 2. Distant Memories. The 5 Major Nations. The current location is still the Emperor's quarters. He had ordered the maid to prepare tea and snacks for us. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Velgrynd, as I said before. I am Araki Gensei. I am the guardian of the kingdom and the protector of His Majesty. I am the third-ranked member of the Imperial Guard, Minamoto Saburo. I have been appointed as a captain of the Imperial Guard swordsmen. Yeah, nice to meet you. And Rudra. Velgrynd was not interested in those two. She brushed off the greetings from them and turned her attention back to her beloved. At my age, I never thought I'd be stared at by such a beautiful woman. I don't feel bad about it, but I can't help but feel sorry for my younger self. Well, Rudra also flatters me. It's a rare experience. It's not flattery, but oh well. I have been known as Sakura Akira. I thought it was reasonably well known, but I guess I just liked it. It was a posthumous name, widely known as the Wise Emperor, but it was a taboo. It is the true name of the Emperor and should not be casually spoken. Even those closest to him would not call him by that name. But it was a name that everyone in the land knew with respect. But to the Velgrynd, he was Rudra. She had no intention of calling him that from the start, let alone not calling him Sakura. Yufufu, well, it's no wonder I don't know you. Because I came into this world the moment I first met you. The you who I know is named Rudra, so that's what I'm going to keep calling you. To the others, she seemed rude to him. But it was officially allowed. The Emperor laughed it off. Allowed. Your Majesty. It doesn't matter. If it will buy the goddess's pleasure, it's a small price to pay. However, I can't allow her to stand next to me in public. Oh, why is that? I too have my position. It would only cause my subjects unnecessary anxiety if there was someone calling me by a name they don't know. If Velgrynd showed her power to everyone, it would be disruptive. The Emperor wanted to keep things quiet and out of sight. Velgrynd understands this and stops asking for more. She would have listened quietly if Rudra had asked her, so she agreed for now. For now, it was more important to listen to the situation. Then let's think about who would do if we had to go out in public. So, can you explain to me what the situation is now? Velgrynd is no dead weight. If Rudra is in trouble, she'll do her best to help. The two guards got a headache from such a transcendental attitude. That Velgrynd is an unfathomable competitor. His Majesty was right. She may be a kind of god or goddess. Perhaps it's better to ask for cooperation rather than to humiliate, Gensei thought. Minamoto, on the other hand, is more complicated. It's not an attitude towards His Majesty, but why? It just seems natural, doesn't it? This disqualifies me from being a bodyguard, but if the Emperor allows it, it's not my place to speak. But I don't know how I would explain it to His Highness or Her Highness. More specifically, he was thinking about the problems that would arise. As an emperor, he can't be blamed for one or two mistresses, and vice versa. The birth of a child would also involve the issue of hereditary succession, so she must be a woman of strong family background. It was also necessary to make the position clear. There was an insurmountable difference in status between the Empress and the concubine. In this case, the Velgrynd must be convinced to be a member of the household. Is she really the kind of woman who can live with that? If she insists on being the Empress, there's nothing we can do. Minamoto is the kind of person who worries about such things, but his real job is to protect the Imperial Palace. No, he was not overly concerned, as any trouble the Velgrynd might have with the Empress or her entourage would be a disaster. There was a big difference in the psychological burden between Gensei, who only had to protect the Emperor, and Minamoto, who had to look out for the safety of the entire palace. Nevertheless, right now, Minamoto thought it was time to answer Velgrynd's question. I'll explain that myself. The environment surrounding our country, the Empire, is very tense. One of the biggest enemies we have seen in the past. The imperial state means the state ruled by emperor and is different in meaning from the empire, which is the state of the great conquest. Unlike the name of the present, it was a title passed down from generation to generation in the Eastern Island nations. The emperor and his guardians protected their subjects from demons. But apart from that, the world was in turmoil. In the east, the empire. In the south, the United States of Azalia. In the north, the Great Rosium dynasty. In the west, the Holy Arsha Empire. In the center, the Middle Kingdom of China was working together with a Japanese country. In each region, they emerged as the standard bearers of the five major powers. Decades ago, they competed for supremacy, but eventually they came to an equilibrium. While looking with an eye on the decline of the other forces, the economic relationship had been maturing for some time. When this happened, conflict no longer surfaced, and peace seemed to have returned to the world. However, dissatisfaction amongst the major powers has not disappeared. If there are those who make profit, then there will be those who will lose, and dissatisfaction will accumulate. And so, 4 years ago, it exploded. The catalyst was a great drought in the middle of China. Water shortages led to famine, and epidemics were rampant. Humanity was understandably distressed, but the Chinese government, in order to protect its own position, turned its discontent to the outside world. And this is what the whole world is caught up in. The Chinese first turned their attention to the south, which was as rich in grain fields as their own. The National People's Congress unanimously voted to invade the United States of Azalia. This was the signal for the start of the war. And in the blink of an eye, warfare spread throughout the world. Seeing the Chinese move their armies, the North moved next. The Great Rosium dynasty began its invasion of China. The aim was clear. To secure a rich granary and a perennial port. The country was suffering from the natural disaster of drought, but that would subside in a few years. Under such a decision, the Great Rosium dynasty resurrected its hegemony. The Chinese would not allow it. It was decided to gather its remaining forces to counterattack and plunge the country into full-scale war. The empire was caught in the middle of this. Their dependence on the Chinese for food imports compelled them to send their troops to China in the name of humanitarian aid. It was an effort to bring this war to a quick conclusion, but the Great Rosium dynasty was furious. Relations with the United States of Azalia were also deteriorating. Faced with a choice between Azalia and China, the empire has chosen to ally itself with China, its lifeline. Thus, the empire is plunged into war with the United States of Azalia. The Holy Arsha Empire did not budge at first, but that peace did not last for a year. This time a famine broke out in their own country, and they became unable to provide aid. Bad things continued to happen. There was an accident at the oil storage facility. As a result, 3 years' worth of fuel was burned down. From the trail left at the site, the culprit was determined to be an agent of the Great Rosium dynasty. The public sentiment in the Holy Arsha Empire was turning toward the anti-Great Rosiumism. With that, the Holy Arsha Empire was able to take advantage of the momentum and take military action. There were those who questioned this course of events. Mystery monk Pulcinella is a member of the Holy Spirit sect, one of the 3 major religions of Buddhism, Holy Spiritism, and Free Spirit. He said he sensed someone's malice and left the oracle. After hearing these words, the holy churches around the world began to investigate and found a clue to the existence of the demon. But it was already too late. You've had your desires stimulated and anger inflamed for the right reasons. It's a shame, but you're right. On second thought, this was obviously a strange turn of events. But the people's anger, once kindled, was not going to go away easily. I don't need to mention the Holy Church, but the leaders of the nations also sensed the anomaly less than a year after the war began. And yet, there were extremists in the military as well. Even those people took advantage of the enemy's machinations and began to be active, and by the time they found themselves in a position where they realized it, there was no way to stop it. To Minamoto's explanation, Gensei added, the same is true in other countries. The same was true in each country, and now it is out of line with the upper management. Those units that have been dispatched are now close to being out of control. And just a few days ago, across the sea, a great naval battle was fought between the US fleet and the Imperial Navy, the pride of the empire. The result was defeat. According to preliminary research, they were evenly matched in strength, but by now, the gap between them was nearly 3 times greater. The reason for this is the betrayal of the Chinese fleet. And the trouble is, it had nothing to do with the home country's intentions. Since the Chinese leadership didn't know about it, there was no way for even our intelligence officers to know about it. By the time they found out, it was too late and they had already caused a painful loss. But the defeat was not in vain. This information was brought to you by my apprentice, who risked his life for it. It was given to me by a man named Kondo, who launched a suicide attack against the enemy fleet and dispersed with great fanfare before his death. The enemy commanders had been taken over by a demon. Gensei said that David Reagan, commander of the United States Grand South Sea Fleet, and Li Jinlong, commander of the U.S. Eastern Sea Fleet, had played Kondu with their unorthodox powers. Kondu realized that he was beyond his power and tried to gather information until the end. And then he lost contact with them. Gensei seriously said that he might have made his life ephemeral. Hearing that, Velgrynd understands. The man in Gensei's story is Lieutenant Kondu, whom Velgrynd knows well. That Kondu was fascinated by Rudra because he felt the same way about Emperor. Kondu instinctively knew that Rudra and Akira Sakura's soul were one and the same. And so, for the first time, Velgrynd felt a closeness to Kondu. Finally, she could believe that his loyalty had been genuine. And so, this is not only Rudra's case, but also Kondu's regrets. I remember now that Kondu seemed to regret not being able to defend his country. That's why he worked for Rudra, no matter what he had to do, to make sure he never went through that again. After all this time, Velgrynd wonders if there is anything that she can do for Kondu. There is only one answer. There is only one way to get rid of Kondu's regrets. With that in mind, Velgrynd switches her mind to listen more intently. Unknowingly, Minamoto continues to explain. The existence of an alien entity that has the ability to possess and control people was quickly communicated to the world leaders. However, the leaders who were not on the scene had no way of knowing who was actually being controlled. It was suspicious of those who deviated from the norm, but it was also difficult to recall the generals who were on the ground operations. There was even the possibility of going public with the truth, but that would have definitely caused a panic. There would be people who would wonder if their superiors were demons, and if that happened, even the chain of command could be destroyed. It could also lead to a domestic witch hunt. That must be stopped, so a secret investigation had been conducted. As a result, they learned that unlike most monsters, these creatures were organized. Moreover, they were active behind the scenes all over the world, with a clear intention to invade. Besides, they are strong. In our kingdom, we use a monster class ranking, Kai class, to describe the strength of monsters, but even the weakest of them are equal to the top monsters. They are so formidable that even the most advanced swordsmen and martial artists can't stand up to them. The 6 levels of the Kai class are, from the top to the bottom are God, Buddha, mythical, dragon monsters, heavenly monsters, advanced monsters, intermediate demons, and lower monsters. The middle and lower levels are called the Chimimram, malevolent spirits of mountains and rivers. The advanced monsters to the heavenly monsters, just before the mythical dragon monsters, were called evil demon Rakshasa. Even the weakest of the monsters that had appeared this time were of heavenly monster class. Kondu and his men had revealed their true identity when they attacked the enemy fleet. They were defeated by the ringleader when he passed on this information. Kondu-san believed that David and Li Jinlong's Kai classes were higher than the mythical dragon class. I'm sure he was right in his assessment. Why? That's because Kondu-san is one of the strongest men here in Hinamoto. Even at the time of the suicide attack, Kondu's skill level was top-notch. His mastery of the Kifu Ryu style, spirit fighting style, the secret of Aboro Shinmei Ryu, enabled him to attain a high level of fighting ability at the mythical dragon level. Still, the reason why he was defeated was because there were 2 enemies. Yes, that man was indeed a good one. What? Huh? Do you know Tensura? Yes, Rudra. Kondu served you in the world I came from, too. For me? Well, Rudra, or Wovid has the same soul as I do. That's right. And Kondu fought and died proudly for you over there, too. The emperor is speechless and dumbfounded. He was deeply disappointed in the death of a man who had been his loyal servant. Oh no, Kondu-san. Minamoto was incredulous as he muttered. Kondu was such an outstanding swordsman, and he wondered if could have been the trump card against the demons had he still been alive. Now that he was confronted with the fact that he was dead, he didn't know what to do. I was hoping that Kondu was still alive, but it's a shame. Master Gensei remained calm as he said this, but inwardly he struggled to hide the sadness that had arisen from the small amount of hope he had lost. It is out of the question to be distracted as someone in a responsible position. I have to calm myself down, he thought to himself. Everyone believed Velgrynd. It was unusual, but strangely enough, they felt her words were true. Velgrynd let everyone hear the story of Kondu's end. At the same time, she tried to figure out who the enemy was, given Kondu's strength. The only thing that matters is that Kondu could be defeated before he crossed over into the world. I think the word demon refers to the phantom race, but if that's the case then my enemy, no. I can't be too sure. I don't have any standards to conclude anything, so I guess I'll just have to wait and see for now. Velgrynd was a confident being, a true dragon at her best, but here loss to Rimuru had made her cautious. Although she didn't think it was the enemy, she would reserve her judgment until she had more information. In fact, her guess at this point was both right and wrong. The concentration of magic is so low in this world that there is no such thing as a remarkably strong monster. It was as if they had arrived from the other world and were so fierce that they were known as gods. Even such individuals were no match for the violence of numbers, and through the cooperation of swordsmen and sorcerers, the numbers were reduced to an almost unseen level now. That's why there was no magic element pooling occurring. Therefore, it was difficult for powerful monsters to occur naturally. Unlike Veldora, the current Velgrynd completes her own mana circulation. It does not need to be replenished from the atmosphere and does not leave her body. This is a skill I learned when I crossed various worlds, that's why I was unaware of the concentration of monsters and magic in this world. In the first place, crossing over worlds would normally be impossible. Even through the underworld gate, you are limited by the size of the gate. A person like Velgrynd, who can use space-time leap without any restrictions, is outside the laws of the world. Thus, compared to Velgryn's magic-filled homeland, the standard of strength in this world was far inferior. That would soon be revealed. That's all for today, hope you guys enjoy it. Please check my other videos. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit the notification icon. And don't miss any updates. Thank you for watching.